Good morning, everyone. It's 13th of February. Mark's been reading through the book of Acts. Today's ready for chapter 10. I've entitled this The Better Covenant. There's a lot of changes that took place in the practices of the Christians from the practice of Jews. And this was evidenced by what happened in the 10th chapter of Acts, where God presented himself in a vision, and it says Cornelius was a centurion of the Italian band. He was an Italian, and God saw his prayers, and he told Cornelius to go and talk to Peter. And Peter went up in the house top about 6 o'clock, and he became very hungry, and he fell into a trance, and he saw a vessel descending, and a sheet at four corners let down the earth, with all manner of four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. And a voice said, "Rise, Peter, kill and eat." This went against everything Peter had been taught about the eating practices of the Jews. In fact, Peter said, "I have never eaten anything that's common or unclean." And the voice said, "What God hath cleansed, call not common." And so, obviously, Peter was full of doubts. And while he thought about the vision, he was told 3 men were seeking after him. And so he went down, and Cornelius said that Cornelius had a good report among all the nation of the Jews, and was warned by a holy angel of God to send for thee into his house. And so on the next day, Peter went with them, and they entered into Caesarea, and Cornelius waited for them. And as Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him, fell down at his feet. And Peter said, "I'm a man." And he talked with him and found out many that came together. And he said, "Ye know that it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come into one another nation, but God has showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Therefore I came unto you as soon as I was sent for." And so Cornelius told him about the vision he had seen. And Peter opened his mouth and said, "I perceive that God is no respecter of persons. But in every nation he that feareth him worketh righteousness is accepted with him." And so he began to understand that they were under the new covenant. And it was for both Jew and Gentile. And so he had fellowship with these people. And it says the Holy Ghost fell on them. And it says they of the circumcision which believed were astonished. They couldn't believe this was happening. They weren't supposed to be affiliating with these Goyim, you know? And then Peter said, they should be baptized. And so anyway, I'm going to turn this over to Mark, have him read this entire chapter, but this is what happened when the new and better covenant came into fruition.
Acts chapter 10. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian band. About man, and one that feared God with all his house, which gave much alms to the people and prayed to God always. He say in a vision, evidently about the 9th hour of the day, an angel of God coming into him and saying to him, Cornelius. When he looked on him, he was afraid and said, What is it, Lord? He said unto him, The prayers and thine alms are come up for mortal before God. Now send men to Joppa and call for one Simon, whose surname is Peter. He lodged with one Simon the tanner, whose house is by the seaside. He shall tell thee what thou oughtest to do. When the angel which spake unto Cornelius was departed, he called two of his household servants, about soldier of them that waited on him continually. When he had declared all these things unto them, he sent them to Joppa. Tomorrow, as they went on their journey and it drew nigh unto the city, Peter went up on the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. And he became very hungry, would have eaten, but while they made ready, he fell into a trance. Saw heaven open, and a certain vessel saying unto him, as it had been a great sheet knit at the four corners, and let him down the earth, wherein were all manners of four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. And the voice to him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. Peter said, Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. The voice spake unto him again the second time, when God had cleansed that common out not common. This was done thrice, the vessel was received up again to heaven. And while Peter doubted himself with this vision which he had seen should mean, behold, the men were sent from Cornelius, and made inquiry for Simon's house, and stood before the gate, and called and asked whether Simon, which was surnamed Peter, were lodged there. Peter thought on the vision, the Spirit said unto him, Behold, 3 men seek thee. Rise, therefore, and get thee down, and go with them, doubting nothing, for I have sent them. And Peter went down to the men which were sent unto him from Cornelius, and said, Behold, I am he whom ye seek. Was the cause wherefore ye are come? It said, Cornelius, a centurion, a just man, and one that fears God, and of good report among all the nation of the Jews, was warned from God by an holy angel to send for thee into this house to hear words of thee. Then called he them in, lodged them, and on the morrow Peter went away with them. Certain brethren from Joppa accompanied him. And the morrow after he entered into Caesarea, Cornelius waited for them, and had called together his kinsmen and near friends. As Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshipped him. Peter took him up, saying, Stand up, myself also am a man. As he talked with him, he went in and found many that were come together. He said to them, You know how it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come into one of another nation. But God has showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Therefore came I unto you without gainsaying as soon as I was sent. For I asked therefore for what intent ye have sent for me. Cornelius said, 4 days ago I was fasting until this hour, and at the 9th hour I prayed in mine own house. Behold, a man stood before me in bright clothing. Said, Cornelius, thy prayer is heard, and thine alms are had in remembrance in the sight of God. Send therefore to Joppa, and call hither Simon, whose surname is Peter. He lodged in the house of one Simon, a tanner by the seaside, who, when he cometh, shall speak unto thee. Immediately therefore I sent to thee, and thou hast well done that thou art come. Now therefore are we all here present before God to hear all things that are commanded thee of God. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, Of a truth I perceive that God is no respecter of persons, but every nation he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. The word which God sent unto the children of Israel, preaching peace by Jesus Christ, he is Lord of all. That word I say ye know, which was published throughout all Judea, and began from Galilee at the baptism which John preached. How God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Ghost and with power, who went about doing good, healing all that were oppressed of the devil, for God was with him. We are witnesses of things which he did both in the land of the Jews and in Jerusalem, whom they slew and hanged on a tree. Then God raised up the third day and showed him openly, not to all the people, but unto witnesses chosen before of God, even to us who did eat and drink with him after he rose from the dead. Command us to preach unto the people and to testify that that it is he which ordained of God to be the judge of quick and dead. To him give all the prophets witness, that through his name whosoever believeth in him shall receive remission of sins. While Peter yet spake these words, the Holy Ghost fell on all them which heard the word. They of the circumcision which believed were astonished, as many as came with Peter, because that on the Gentiles also was poured out the gift of the Holy Ghost. For they heard them speak with tongues and magnify God. Then answered Peter, Can any man forbid water that these should not be baptized, which have received the Holy Ghost as well as we? They commanded them to be baptized in the name of the Lord, and prayed him to tarry certain days.
Well, you know what? I think that the Messianic Jews ought to read this chapter. I attended a Messianic church one time, and they were still trying to practice all of these holy days. You know? We're no longer under the ceremonial law. You know? I don't have any problem with eating meat. I'm not a vegan. I mean, if you take this for what it says that this was lowered down all kind of four-footed beasts and wild beasts and creeping things. That would eat wild beasts. That would include raccoons, wouldn't it? And bear. And fowls of the air. And the voice says, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. And people trying to hold on to all these ceremonial laws and worship on these ceremonial days, the Feast of Trumpets and all this stuff. Listen, we're under the new covenant. We're not under the old covenant. May the good Lord be with you today is my prayer. And let us remember that God himself was an advocate of eating meat. Have you ever thought about that? God himself was an advocate of eating meat. He was, he would be, and you know what? Even after he rose from the dead, he put fish on the fire and said, Come and dine. He wasn't a vegan. Well, anyway, hope you all have a blessed day today.